We make these financial decisions that are based on what our minds think is the right thing to do, but our bodies are screaming at us because of anxiety or feeling nauseous or you just don't feel grounded. It just doesn't feel like you're in neutral. So if you're making financial decisions where you're not in neutral, just know it's not in alignment with yourself, and it shows up in various ways. It may be that you get nervous when you have to have these conversations when you go talk to somebody about money or your spouse about money or whatever. That just means you're not fully bringing yourself to the table, and your body intelligence is screaming at you. What's going on, everybody? Julie Murphy here, and I have spent over the last 25 plus years being a financial planner, and it's time for every single one of you to get to a life that you absolutely love. And the only way we do that is to get you past your financial fears. Because on some level, we all have them. Even if you may appear like you have your financial together, it's still creeping up on you on some level somehow. And in these days, we are getting pressed all over the place for that to come up and out. So don't forget, hit that subscribe button, like, and notification bell. Why? Because I'm going to get you to a life that you absolutely love. And I want you to be a part of this community because it's about financial empowerment, not about the scarcity, like there's not enough for all of us. And because there is. And so no matter whether you consider yourself poor, a debtor, dreamer, accumulator, rich but empty, it's all about aligning with you and coming from your place of empowerment from a financial perspective. Okay? So I'm going to share with you today 4 different steps that I really need you to follow to start to build that muscle. I always talk about your financial muscles, right? And you're not going to do it perfect at first. If you remember, I talk about Dr. Bruce Lipton all the time. Why? Because I always say we either work things out and we act it out, and we do it through our money, through our health, and our relationships. And that's why in these 4 steps that I'm going to share with you about how to get past your financial fears, we have got to look at this integration of our health, our wealth, and our relationships, and how our subconscious mind, and this is where the research that Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about all the time in his book, The Biology Belief, is the fact that we are hardwired before we're 7 years old with something that creates how we respond to the world in relationships, with our money, and with our health. And I've watched clients through the years do this teeter-totter thing. I talk about in my first book, The Emotion Behind Money. I talk about, and actually I have the workbook here to show you guys. I have a workbook, The Emotion Behind Money. What I realized when I was writing this book, 50%, 50, of my clients, male clients between 55 and 65 years old, developed cancer around their hip area. Why? Because their financial fears were coming up. And I started to realize going, we do work things out or act it out through our money, through our health, and through our relationships. And since I've written that book back a few years ago, I have come to realize that these 4 steps are going to actually get you to a more solid foundation so that you can make financial decisions based on actually your core in observation and not reactivity. And some of you may be like, Jewel, what exactly are you talking about there? So often we make these financial decisions that are based on what our minds think is the right thing to do, but our bodies are screaming at us because of anxiety or feeling nauseous or you just don't feel grounded. It just doesn't feel like you're in neutral. So if you're making financial decisions where you're not in neutral, just know it's not in alignment with yourself, and it shows up in various ways. It may be that you get nervous when you have to have these conversations when you go talk to somebody about money or your spouse about money or whatever. That just means you're not fully bringing yourself to the table, and your body intelligence is screaming at you to tell you, hello, I'm important too. Hello, I'm important too. So I need you to get in tune with that body intelligence. And that's why step number 1 is that you have to start trusting that body intelligence. That is the first step to get through your financial fears. And again, Trusting yourself financially is not necessarily something that you're going to do overnight. It takes time. It's kind of like when you first start going to the gym and you start lifting those weights. You're not going to see those biceps right away, right? You're not going to see the biceps right away. It's going to take time to build the muscle. So remember, your financial muscles, they take just as much time to build. You have to do it with ease and grace, and it takes time. It's not overnight. All right? Ready for step number 2? All right, number 2, I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Why? Why? Think of it like financial yoga. All right? Those of you who do yoga, think of it like financial yoga. You do yoga for your physical body because it opens things up. If you're on your Peloton, like I am, I do my Peloton treadmill all the time. I'm on there, I'm doing stretches, and they're always like, breathe into that part of the pain. You can open up your body more. Well, if you want to open up your financials more, you need to open yourself up. Why? Because when we are contracted and we're not, I'll call it financial flexibility. Ooh, I like that one. I've never used that one. Financial flexibility. When you want more financial flexibility, I need you to breathe into where you're stuck. You're stuck because you have these fears and anxiety, perhaps that come up about money, or your kids with how they're going to make it, or your parents and long-term care issues, or whatever that fear-based financial thing is. Because God knows my industry is extremely good at making you terrified about your financial situation. And it's just because of the fact that most people are. Financial professionals have jobs because people don't feel like they can build their own financial muscles or don't have the time. It's not so much that they can't, but they may not have the time. But I want you to start to build that muscle, and you got to breathe to create the space for expansion. When our physical nervous systems are hijacked, so you have anxiety, fears, you name it, nausea, whatever, it makes it so that you can't actually open yourself up to allow yourself to have what I call financial flow. So I always tell people, like, take the word budget completely out of your vocabulary. Why? Because a budget causes you to contract. It tells you you cannot have the life that you want to have. And it's like this vice that's put on us when we say a budget. Anyone with me on that one? I know. I feel it too. So it's just about, I need you to open it up to flow. And it starts with step number 2 of breathing. Because if you want your cash to flow and your finances to flow in a direction that you really want to live a lifestyle of, you've got to open up the channels. And it starts with your nervous system. So breathing into it, doing this financial yoga, opens up the floodgates for everything to flow. Because then you're making decisions from a financial perspective from a grounded place, which is not a place of reactivity. Often we try to just patch our financial holes, whether it's, something came up and we're in an emergency, and this is how we stay in the trap of debt in our lives. Like, oh, well, my parents didn't save enough money, and now I got to go to college, and now I got to take out all these student loans because da 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 da. I remember my mom saying to me, well, Jewel, if you don't take out a loan, you're not going to college. I now know that that is totally my mom's belief system, and that's okay too. But I now know that there's different ways to do it. That you could choose to work and go to school at the same time. You could choose to do community college for a little bit and get scholarships or whatever. I mean, there's other ways to design it. There's not just one way to a goal, right? But we put ourselves in these financial positions. Like, one that I absolutely love to talk about all the time is the fact that, like, you own a house, right? You own a house. And everyone's always surprised when these big ticket items happen on a house and you're like, oh, it's killing my cash flow. Really? Is it really killing your cash flow? Because the last time I checked, we all know that hot water tanks last 7 to 10 years. Roofs are 20 years. Windows are 20 years. Appliances are about 20 years. That's why, when you're buying a new house, you got to know when you're buying a 20-year-old new house, you're going to be replacing all the roof, the windows, yada, yada, yada. It's going to keep adding up. I've done the math. If you take all those expenses and you divide it by 20 years, If you put $250, now this depends on the size of house and this is, I ran them for Chicago numbers. So wherever you live, take a cost of living adjustment, right? $250 a month you have to save into an account. And you guys know I love online savings accounts that you can name your financial intention with. Name that financial intention, call it the house repair fund. And guess what? You can turn around and then put that money in there on a monthly basis. And then over a 20-year period of time, you have the cash to actually replace all those things. And so they're not a shock. They're not a shock to your system. They don't add more stress, which causes your nervous system to contract. And then you can't live the life you want to live because you're stressed out about this. It's not flowing. You're blocking your flow, and it ripples effects. So getting past your financial fears is starting to have your money directed into a place of empowerment. That's step number 3. You need to step into your financial empowerment by having actual accounts set up that are for intended purposes. I always say to people they tell me their dreams like, oh God, I really want to travel. And I'm like, so where are you traveling right now? And they're like, I'm not. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not? Well, I don't have the cash to do it. And I'm like, well, what account do you have set up, funded, so that you make sure that you carve the money out to go do that because you're choosing for that to be a financial priority for yourself. And that's actually step number 4. I need you to choose your financial priorities. Why? Because then you get out of your fears of something else not happening. It's like we give so much energy to our fears instead of our energy towards what we want to create. Like if we just shift our energy, that's why in my second book, the Awaken Your Wealth book, in my online course that I have for Awaken Your Wealth, I talk about the fact that I want you to start to dream the dream. It's the first step in the process I work with people. Why? Because of the fact that if you start with the dream, then we get reality into alignment and we accept the fact that you've created what you've created thus far. But then we need to get to that next place. We need to get to that choosing your financial priorities, because then you're choosing it. You're not being victim of a system, victim of the employers, victim of your parents, because victim consciousness creates scarcity, which blocks cash coming from you, blocks manifestation instead of opening up to the flow. And it all is predicated on step number 1 that I shared with you today. Trust your body intelligence. And then step number 2, calm that nervous system down. You got to take that deep breath in. Do the things. Another tip on that one, even if you don't like breathing or breath work, if you've never seen breath work before, that helps. I just bought these things. Go to earthing.com. I have no relation to them. But let me tell you, they have these grounding mats that you can actually put on your mattress underneath your sheets. Totally calms your nervous system, just like meditation would do, just like breathing and yoga would do. It's another tool to pull you down into a state of neutrality so we can calm that nervous system down. So these fears are not driving your life anymore, but that we're actually stepping into empowerment on your financials. If we start to choose the things that are really in alignment with our hearts, really in alignment with our souls, and for many of you out there, you've ignored this for a really long time. So you may not even recognize what is in alignment with your heart and your soul. So these tips and tools are really to help you start to step out of the financial fear that you have, or the financial fear that you have for others. Like, stay in your lane. If you do your work, you're raising the grid for everybody else. So I hope this was helpful today. And you know what? Can you do me a favor? Please hit that subscribe button, like, and notification bell. Why? Because you deserve a life that you absolutely love. So let's get you there. And if you could do me a favor, could you please share this with anyone, any of your loved ones, because it's time for the world to financially heal. And I need your help doing it by sharing this video. Thanks, everybody.